and welcome to the Geek Branch podcast. I appreciate everyone coming in and watching and listening. We have some exciting news. If you have been following, you probably already know we have a video that nearly hit 150,000 views. That's amazing. We're in shock and we're excited. We are up 850 subscribers. We're nearly at 1,000. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Please comment, please like, please share. Let's have a conversation. We're going to start off with our segment that I host, Branch Wars. I am with my wonderful co-host, Dane and Cussler. And of course, I am Tim. Matt, unfortunately, with his new job, was unable to come in today, but we hope he'll be back soon. I have two topics for you during my segment. My first one is who should replace Scott Dickerson for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? And then my next one is about a Korean drama that I absolutely love. Don't judge. Okay, I love my Korean dramas. And it is When the Camilla Blooms. All right, so we'll start. What were you gonna say?
Oh no.
I was gonna say I have no room to judge about what anybody watches.
Oh, well, we know that you're the weeb, so no room to judge. But so when we unfortunately found out that another director has left the MCU due to creative differences. It's not the first time this has happened. We of course are talking about Scott Dickerson, the director of the original Doctor Strange movie. He has left the production of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. People of the industry state that their sources are telling them it's because Scott basically wanted to do a much more darker and horror-oriented sequel, and the studio was not willing to go that direction. Even though they said there will be more horror elements, I guess he was taking it a step further than they wanted. So what our question is, who should replace him? So the Geek Branch crew is going to dive into this, suggest who could pick up where he left off, and what does this signify for Phase 4. So I have a list of directors that I could see Marvel going with. So a few of them I'm looking at as ones they would probably look at, and then also ones that I think they should pick. I know Dane is also a horror aficionado. So
I'm also a giant fan of Doctor Strange.
he's also a fan of Doctor Strange. So he has, I'm sure, a wealth of opinion on this topic. How do you feel about him leaving?
Well, I was happy with his first work. And so just on that alone, I am saddened to see him go. For me, Doctor Strange, especially dealing with magic as it is in the Marvel universe, and just how as it is as a concept in general, magic has always had a horror element because magic, while not, and it can be sometimes horrific in scope, tends to be horrific in appearance. Doctor Strange is the type of character who can go to dimensions with cosmic horrors, can deal with things like demons in hell and all other types of, well, generally speaking, madness. And visually being able to see that, seeing what things are like just beyond the veil of our reality.
He did a
and having-
fantastic job.
Yeah, and having magic to access it, like, especially with Dormammu. I consider Dormammu to be like the most horror villain that
I wish he could have done that a little differently.
well,
The animation.
well, yes, he isn't the giant, flaming deity Dormammu.
I do prefer that Dormammu.
which I actually do prefer too. But nevertheless, the concept of Dormammu
No,
was
it was
handled,
it was handled very well.
yeah,
It was handled very well. It was just that one part that it bothered a lot of people.
and yeah, that's fine. I mean, we've always had a big issue with big gray villains and also giant space blobs like
Yeah, Fantastic Four
yeah,
and
yeah.
the Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Mhm.
Yep.
where rather than showing the iconic image as we know it, we get just giant gray cloud of death, which
Yep.
is what Dormammu was. Giant, gray cloud of death with some
Except for very purple and weird waves.
dimensional schism. But
Yeah.
the point being is it's just a giant blob monster rather than actually being a
Yeah, well, of
hard
course the
concept
excuse
entity.
could be is that we weren't able to see his true form, is what they were saying. Basically.
Yeah, well, same thing with Galactus. He was hidden in a cloud.
Yeah.
I mean,
The only
It is what it is.
teaser we got to that was the fact that like one flash we got the shape of his iconic head.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, see, my thing is that, like, even with that, though, I was very happy with what Dormammu represented, as well as how Dormammu lost, which is you just introduce something that isn't familiar to it's a magical thing. When you bring something that's unfamiliar into someone's life, it makes it pervasive. Like Doctor Strange brought time to a dimension that was timeless.
Yeah.
And Dormammu lost because Dormammu became afraid that he would be
Right.
stuck in an infinite loop, a concept that's foreign to him. That same fear that any magician has to deal with when casting themselves out into the unknown stopped one of the greatest deific sorcerers in existence just because it was his home dimension where he had never had to deal with it before.
Right.
That's really good. And I actually like that from a high concept standpoint. And going into the multiverse of madness, I felt should be the same thing.
Yeah, it should be high concept and it should add more horror elements because you're dealing in it's in the
It's
title.
in
It
the
has
name.
madness and it has multiverse. Okay. So
Right. And obviously, whenever you see madness, we have been hard trained to expect Lovecraft. You know,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
mean, just madness and Lovecraft are one in one. So it is what it is. But I've always wondered with the multiverse of madness whether or not which one of these words would get the biggest input. And obviously, it seems as if the
multiverse is
Multiverse
the
is
bigger
it, yeah.
bigger part.
so we're gonna get what if rather than what as opposed.
I feel like that we'll still get the horror elements. It's just that he was wanting to go more of the direction of some of his other films like Sinister, and they weren't wanting so much the gore aspect in
Well-
their movies.
Well, what I'm specifically referring to is that which word we get focused on, multiverse or madness.
Yeah.
And when focusing on multiverse, what you get is Marvel's What If, where
Right.
we would see different variations of the characters we've always known
So-
in different situations,
right.
rather than opposed to madness, which should be what Strange is dealing with, being either cast into these different dimensions
Right.
or just like you have to imagine that outside of Tony, Strange is the second most traumatized character in the MCU because while Tony has still just been obsessing with the events of the very first Avengers movie leading up to his final confrontation with Thanos, and that fear, that paranoia and anxiousness that he's always had has led him to, infinitely keep recycling and inventing, and it's been a very traumatic experience for Tony. Doctor Strange, in the course of what could only have been about an hour or two, watched his friends and his world get destroyed across billions of iterations.
Right.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't have a mental toll on a person, I don't know what is. Now, sure, he played the game where he knew that he needed to do this, so he kept going. But I've always wanted to see what's the cost of using
how it
the
affected him.
eye of Agamotto in that way.
Yeah.
And if Doctor Strange may be still suffering the effects of having to run through time in that fashion.
And then also the
And this
fact
would be
that
the
he knew
movie-
he was sacrificing Tony.
Right. That he knew that one of his greatest friends is
Well, not really a friend in the MCU.
In the MCU, in the comics, that is actually the case. The Mustache Bros.
Exactly.
But,
Yes.
but regardless,
They were starting to form a bond.
right.
know.
But just sacrificing someone who he also knew had a lot of value to the world,
Right.
because while he's the Sorcerer Supreme and he is like the end all be all for magic, Tony is the same thing for tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, Tony is the person that can help people move forward into tomorrow. Strange really can't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference between the two of them. And that Strange remains. Strange couldn't sacrifice himself. And Strange, of course, still holds back the unending tide of horror that is the magical multiverse.
Yeah.
And that's really valuable, as we saw with the Sorcerer Supreme, as she explained to Hulk in the Avengers movie, that without her here and without
The
these
Time Stone.
forces, without these forces holding the universe together, things would cataclysmically go wrong.
Which is what we expect to see.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he doesn't have it anymore.
And so, yes,
Which I assume with him looking at all the different variables and seeing how to basically the ending to Endgame, I assume that he also went further into that future and saw how he could get himself the Time Stone again.
I mean,
Because it's part of who Doctor Strange is.
yeah, there's a arc in the comics where the same thing happens. All the Infinity Stones are destroyed, with the exception of one, and I'm pretty sure that the one that doesn't get destroyed is the Time Stone.
But that's because it goes and gets all the other ones and does,
Like they have an inbuilt system to bring themselves back into existence.
yeah.
Right.
So they could bring the same reference from the comics
If they
where-
wanted to.
if they wanted to, where the gems have a failsafe that allows them to recycle back.
But no
into
one
the
knows where
universe.
any of the others are.
And that's why you need to go into either the multiverse where
I
they've been
doubt
scattered.
Yeah.
But I mean, like there's plenty of things that you can do. But
Yeah.
going back to the main subject here, if we get a director that either can't follow up on the vision of the original director, we're going to see really drastic changes. Because even if he comes in like J.J. Abrams for episode 3 for Star Wars and has
Episode 3.
episode 3, no, episode 9 actually, but regardless, Rise of Skywalker, the Disney trilogy,
Yeah.
the last episode, he has to either redub the entire vision, or he has to carry on the work, but is willing to change it to fit what the production side wants. And either way, I would rather have just had the original product.
Right. Well, it hasn't been the first time where this has happened. A lot of people remember what happened with Ant-Man. Edgar Wright was supposed to be the original director, and that didn't happen, and we got Peyton Reed, who's been wanting to direct a comic book movie forever. And with what he had, I mean, I would have honestly have loved to have seen Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, but Peyton Reed did pretty good.
Well, but see, that's a big difference, though.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the original Ant-Man, which I think we are, the very first one,
Yeah,
taking the vision from the beginning and moving forward is
much different than
than
following up to one that already exists.
which is the reason why I brought up J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, which makes sense. So the list of directors I have looked at and thought of for this, the first one I'm going to mention doesn't necessarily mean I think he should be the pick, but with the way Disney works, a lot of times they look at directors who have only done a few movies, and they have had one movie become a huge hit, but not to the point to where the director is making bukus of money from other studios wanting him. And the one I'm talking about is Robert Eggers. He did a movie that is in the like the circuit for awards right now, which is Lighthouse, which has Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe, and it's gotten a lot of hype around the indie market. A lot of people liked it. And then he also did The Witch, which I never watched, but maybe Dane did. So with him having just a small repertoire of movies, I could see where Disney could swoop in and try to get him to come do the movie.
Okay, so with him as a recommendation, I like his work, both The Witch and Lighthouse.
Yeah.
So that is something that that's a big positive for him. I think that he is in the style and has the ability to kind of meet the concept demands for what Doctor Strange stands for. I don't know if he can make a superhero movie though.
Yeah, I don't know how that, but there has been other directors that you wouldn't think would be able to make a superhero movie, like the guy who currently does the Spider-Man movies. He's done really strange, off the wall.
Yeah, but see, that's the problem, is that actually the Spider-Man movies haven't really been
like true superhero movies.
They've
been John Hughes movies.
Well, they've
in
been
a superhero world.
They've been almost slice of life, because honestly, like Far From Home is just a romance.
Right.
It's like there just happens to be something getting in the way of my romance, but like
yeah, but that's typical of Spider-Man.
But-
Everything's against him when he's trying to.
yeah, yes, that's fine and all. But I'm saying is that like the focus shift isn't on Peter as a hero. It's there as like an overlay. The focus shift is on Peter as a person. And while that's cool and all, that's not what superhero movies are about.
Right. No, you're right.
So it's fine that like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that Far From Home was any much worse because
For that reasoning.
Yeah, it took that direction. It's just that if you were to keep repeating this, it would slowly shift itself out of the correct genre, and it would become noticeable. Because Far From Home, just to me, the first time this really hits was noticeable. Like the original one, Homecoming. Wait, no, is it Homecoming then Far From Home? Or is it Far From Home?
It's
Homecoming
Homecoming
and Far,
and then Far
From
From
Home.
Home.
Right.
Because Homecoming, they have the name for two reasons. Number one is kind of a play on words on the fact that Spider-Man came to the MCU.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So Homecoming, while definitely was much more heroic because it's directly dealing with a supervillain that has, the standard villain archetype. Even with that,
It's still slice of life at the end of the day.
it's very much so. This is what Peter's been doing when he's not been an Avenger.
Right.
And
well, he's the blue collar hero, so they're trying to focus on the blue collar part a lot,
which is fine. But you also have another iteration of that in Scott Lang and Ant-Man.
right?
And Ant-Man is definitively a superhero movie. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Peyton Reed's like
it
obsessive over comics, so it's not too surprising he was able to make it feel like how a comic book movie is.
Like if it's really about like the spectrum, and if you consider like Ant-Man to be like 80% heroism and then 20% life of Scott Lang, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man has been almost 50-50, if not slanting towards like 60% life of Peter Parker.
The director, what he was trying to go for was more of, like I said before, his like goal was to make it into a John Hughes movie in the superhero world.
Right. So
that was his goal, and he achieved it.
Right. So, but my thing is that
if you don't know who John Hughes is, he was famous in the 80s for making movies with what you would call the Brat Pack. So he made 16 Candles. He made what's the one where they're all stuck in school? Breakfast Club.
So good.
Weird Science. Uncle Buck. Home Alone. So a lot of the big one that you grew up with.
But so when you're dealing with this director going into Doctor Strange can't take that. Like
right? No. His world is not about. His focus is not day-to-day life. It's about the bigger picture.
Yeah. Right. And so that's one of the things that just we can't afford to happen. It has to. Doctor Strange has to be a superhero film, or at the very least, it has to be a horror film. If
or
it ain't
supernatural.
Yeah, if it ain't one of these two, then
it's failed.
Yeah, it's going to fail.
So the next director, and this is one again that I could see Marvel going with because of his stuff being in the award circuit. He's done a couple of movies that are American, but they're not huge. One was, the comic that one of the ones he did is a well-known indie comic, but the movie itself wasn't a big hit. So I think he could still fall under that. He's new enough to where they don't have to shell out a whole bunch of money. He just directed a movie that a lot of people love. It's called Parasite. His name is Bong Joon-ho. And he is, like I said, he has directed Parasite, a movie with Netflix, which is called Okja. And then the Snowpiercer movie, which I think Snowpiercer shows that he can pull off doing a superhero type film.
Yeah, it's pretty close to the genre.
Yeah, well, it is a comic book a series, just not superhero.
Yes. Snowpiercer, the one about the train?
Yes.
Okay.
The one with Chris Evans.
Yes, I know what that
So
movie
he's
is.
already got experience with one of the MCU characters.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying like it's within the genre. So
yeah,
he definitely. So first off, I love him.
Yeah, he's great.
Yes,
and writing and directing.
But specifically his cinematography, the man has turned the basics into a fine art.
Yes.
Like his fundamentals as far as framing, all of the basics of filming as we currently know them, the man has refined, especially in Parasite, to a T. And that is always going to be a giant positive. But he's not really one to do.
No, he wouldn't be one to do a superhero like this movie.
Right.
Snowpiercer's as close as you're gonna get him.
But he's also not the like with Lighthouse, the odd creative type that does things that are, weird and jarring, which is kind of what you're looking for when you're thinking about madness.
Right.
Because the man is, like I said, he has his fundamentals so down packed, but he doesn't, at least in my experience, do things that are like Del Toro, which are uniquely creative with his films.
Right.
Not saying that he isn't a creative person, but like he's not one to say, I'm going to innovate this new style of like framing, this new style of color exchange and lighting. He rather is so good at doing the things that you would learn in film school that I'm not sure if he's going to be innovative enough like Del Toro or Kubrick would
Right.
be to kind of like throw us something new and exciting and
I'm just
fitting
mainly
that
looking at it in the
madness.
perspective of how Disney picks their
Well, yeah, no, if we're
directors
trying to predict what Disney's gonna do, Disney is very predictable. But I'm also looking at just what I feel is right
for
for
the
the film.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last I have there's 4 and we've gotten to 2. The fourth one will be the one that I think is a perfect fit for the movie. But the third one is Jeremy Soliner. He's known for his unique cinematic aesthetic. So he has done a couple of movies. The one that's most known is Green Room. He's done that. He's done a few episodes of True Detective, and he did a movie on Netflix called Hold the Dark. So I don't know if they'll pick him, but he's kind of gotten to where he's tested the waters and some bigger stuff, but not big enough to where they wouldn't have to worry about shelling out a whole bunch of money. But he has experience in the horror thriller genre.
Yeah, but he's not a high concept director.
No, he hasn't done anything. Well, yeah, he hasn't done anything really high concept yet.
So there's that. So I'm not saying that he's
You
not.
don't have to, you know, this. You know how Marvel is though. They've picked plenty of people that have never done a high concept movie in their life.
Which is fine.
I'm just saying.
But I'm just
I'm
like,
not saying I would want him.
But all the ones that you slot out, like as far as high concept goes, like Thor and Strange are kind of the two highest high concept
Yeah.
heroes.
Which is why I don't think that the first Thor exactly meets the mark, in my opinion.
Well, that or Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Now they're great films, but they're not hitting the correct tones. Dark World is definitively not correct as far as filming goes, but
Yeah.
at least is true to what Thor should be, which is Thor dealing with the other realms.
Yeah, I didn't like the movie, but
I mean, that's my point. It's like some things hit the wrong note, like Ragnarok and the first movie, and are great films.
Yeah.
And then some things hit the right note, and then
it's not a
still
good
suck.
movie. Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. So my last pick, he has done a lot of acting and writing and producing, but he's also a good director. He is Eli Roth. You might know him most for his role in Inglorious Bastards. But he's also done a lot of horror films. He's done Hostel. He's done Cabin Fever. But the movie that really had me looking at him, why he would be a really good pick, is House with Clocks on the Wall, the one with Jack Black and Kate Blanchett.
Mm. So yeah, okay, he definitely can check off high concept, but he's very comedic. like in
And
his
Disney loves comedic.
But in his direct, yeah. So sure, okay. If we were talking about like what bad decision Disney would make, which I'm not saying this is a bad decision, but Disney's mindset's always a little bit,
More family friendly.
yeah, and wonky. So yeah, sure, you could totally see him being the actual choice. But like his directing style and his subjects have always had a comedic bent to them, and
Not always.
like most of them.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah, most of them. I mean, like sure, there
Even
are
when he
some-
doesn't direct, he's like, Inglorious Bastards. That's a funny war movie.
right. Even though it has dark tones.
Right.
I mean, like even when he's like casting, he tends to go for actors that can, do a bit of comedy.
Would you say that Hostel is a comedic movie? I never watched Hostel 1 or 2 or Death Wish.
Okay, well, Death Wish, yes.
Yeah, I've never watched it.
Well, it's not that it's so I don't even like comedy, right?
Right.
So when I consider something to be comedic, it can probably be far less funny or meant for comedy than other people would. But like I find that most of his stuff has a comedic bent. There's something that is inherently funny to the subject.
Right.
To me. So that might be unique in that perspective. Like
Right, no,
Hostile might not be seen as funny to other people.
Yeah.
But-
like his most recent movie that I mentioned about it, it's definitely a comedy
Sorry about that.
with a high fantasy concept. No, you're fine. The one with Jack Black was definitely a comedic style movie. So I understand what you're saying.
Right. And while Doctor Strange can be comedic,
Yeah, especially the interactions with Wong and Doctor Strange.
right. And also, like, even in the comics, there's a little bit of, comedy to some of the things that he does because he's very lackadaisical with the things that he's dealing with. Like, once again, the guy's been to actual hell, dealt with actual demons, and is still, talking smack. He's a funny guy.
He is.
But
in his own dry sense of humor way.
right. And we have a actor in the role in Benedict that is capable of doing both, especially dry humor. The dude,
Right.
dude's
Yeah,
really
he's very
there.
good at it.
So maybe this is the correct matchup, but I would love to have seen this in the first film, not the sequel.
Right.
And I'm worried about that because I think there's going to be a big tonal difference if he takes over the sequel as comparing it to the first film. And we've seen what happens when you have big tone shifts in movies.
Yeah, because he's talking about Thor Ragnarok because it's a huge tone shift.
Right. Also, Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
So
I hate Iron Man too.
So a lot of people do. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't necessarily complain
Well,
about
it's
it.
the same director though.
Yeah, but there was still a giant tone
Yeah,
shift.
it
So,
was.
like even if it could happen with the same
Of course,
director.
that was like the most rushed Marvel movie ever made. Iron Man
Yes.
2 was because they're like, oh god, Iron Man was a huge success. Make a movie. Make a movie.
Okay, we talk about him like using the facilities in the suit.
Yeah, well,
So that's what I'm saying. Tone
Yeah.
shift.
I actually had a thought about something. So Doctor Strange is usually the straight man in comics, right? Whenever he's with somebody else, he's usually the straight man.
Yeah, but he's deadpan about it.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yes.
the only
So-
time he's not the straight man is when he's with Wong.
Well, that or he's by himself.
Yeah.
My point is there anybody? Do we think there could be a second character that would evolve that would be more the comedic character to Doctor Strange's straight man? Because I know that was your big problem with the first one was the fact that he was very funny, and Doctor Strange usually isn't
It's
as
funny.
Well, because when you're taking someone through a magical portal to hell and you've been to hell before and they haven't, so you land there and you're like, all right, welcome to hell. And they're like, ah!
Right,
See-
right, exactly.
See,
So-
that's another reason why I would think Eli Roth would be a good pick because he would probably play a role.
But that's why I'm saying, like, I think there should be if we have Doctor Strange be more of the deadpan straight man role, we should have a secondary character, but I don't know who it would be.
Well, his secondary character is inherent. It's Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
But the problem
But
is that she's also just as deadpan.
Yes.
so
but
there
she-
could be a
she's-
third character
Well, that's what I'm saying. Could they introduce somebody else during
in the
this?
Doctor Strange world.
Somebody who's directly related to Doctor Strange's comics. Like, could he
Not
just?
Wong, but
Yeah.
someone else that me and him that don't know Doctor Strange as well as you do.
Because I know, like,
Well, his list of allies isn't very long.
Yeah.
I know it's Tony and
Well,
then-
outside
Spider-Man every once in a while.
outside of the actual Avengers,
Yeah.
it's really short.
Yeah, it's
The-
Wong and like
The
a
man,
few others.
the man solos 9 times out of 10.
Right.
It's just what he does. So yeah, there are some characters we could pull out, but no one sticking out as the character you would bounce that off of. With
You could
the
just
exception
make
of
up a
Wong.
character.
Well, I'm just saying, with the exception of Wong. Wong is literally, but Wong is also that same way. After so long, Wong has been so like he's not as young.
he's disillusioned.
Yeah, he's desensitized to it actually at this point. Like when a giant monster pops out of Strange's closet, like Wong just picks up a battle axe.
Right.
You know
He's
what I'm
like
saying?
he's like the guy in the Pink Panther, where what's his name?
Yeah.
Where whenever the Crusoe always goes into his house and he fights with him, he's kind of like
yeah,
like that guy.
He's gotten too used to it.
yeah.
It reminds me of when in Endgame where everybody's coming out of the portal and Strange turns to Wong. Is like, is that everybody? And Wong's like, you wanted more?
Yeah, right. Yeah, because he's used to it. He's
Yeah.
just like he's put up with it for so long.
Right.
that
Yeah.
he's- but
Before Strange came around.
But to our credit, in the MCU, Wong hasn't.
Yes.
Wong isn't multiversal in the MCU. So
Right.
you could actually pick Wong for this role as the simplest character you could slot.
Which they did make him a bit comedic in Endgame.
He's also not as experienced as he used to be. Remember,
Yeah.
he was a glorified librarian
Right.
previously,
Right.
as opposed to what he was before in the comics.
So
where
he could have been that before and he's just a little rusty now.
Yeah. So I mean, and when we go to the multiverse, which Wong really has no reason to be super familiar with,
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
we could just play off Wong freaking out.
It could be
That's
Wong.
just an idea I had for this. Given the fact that one, we know for a fact they're not going to go with the super horror aesthetic because it's Disney and they're going to try to market to kids. That's one of the big things.
I think they'll have some horror elements. I
Yes,
just think it's not going to be like
it's
he
going to
was
be
wanting.
Nightmare on or not Nightmare. Sorry,
No.
Nightmare for Christmas level, not
Yeah, it'll be more like that.
Well,
So might get a few monsters here and there, but they're not going to have oozing of blood or viscera.
no gore and horror in
Yeah.
that fashion. No Cthulhian madness.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's actually going to lean more towards like what we expect out of the New Mutants as levels of horror. Horror for kids.
right.
Well, I'm hoping that the New Mutants isn't horror for kids because I love Hellbear. But it is what it is.
Well, good news for you is Disney is not doing reshoots. They decided to let Josh Boone do his original cut, and I'm pretty sure that was rated R.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like the only
Disney
person.
decided to go ahead and save their money and just put money into marketing.
Yeah, I'm like the only person that even like probably cares about that movie.
I'm interested after that new trailer, but again, Disney is
like-
much better at marketing superhero movies than Fox ever was.
Right. But
Yeah.
like the New Mutant era, as far as like the X-Men goes, is one of the most
Stacy.
like rolled over. So I don't think anyone actually cares too much.
Yeah.
So
I
but it
don't
is
know.
what it is. But that's off subject.
Yeah.
All I'm
we'll
saying
take
is
care
that
of
of
them.
the list that we have, no one really fits as well as the first director, but I could accept.
Some of the people I
Yeah.
looked at. Who would you, if you had a choice
I mean,
besides the original director?
I know, right? But yeah. I'm kind of torn between 1 and 2. Lighthouse was a really good film, and Snowpiercer is pretty much the only movie on this list that actually is like a superhero movie. So those two seem like the safe choices.
Yeah, and he's willing to work on American movies. He doesn't just do South Korean stuff.
And it'd be nice to bring him into the general market. Because I'm going to butcher his name if I actually bother to pronounce it. So I'm just sticking with the films that he's directed. But yeah, so the director for Snowpiercer is probably the best choice.
Which is Bong Joon-ho.
Would butcher that, so I'm not going to bother.
I'm trying. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Wife's trying to go underneath the cord, connect it to my computer. I'm assuming you don't have a record.
Unfortunately-
you're not big on horror, so you don't know.
it's not even that. I don't actually know directors all that well. Like the only times like I can even talk about a director is we're directly talking about the movie we're talking about. And
Right.
Well, he's also unfamiliar with most of the filmography here. So
this is also true.
Yes.
I have only seen Snowpiercer because
it appeared on TV.
yes, actually. Somebody else was watching it in the room and I watched some of
TNT's
it.
making a TV show of it, actually.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
they'll probably ruin it.
But no, honestly,
Probably.
like I don't watch a lot of movies. I really don't.
He watches the MCU and DC movies.
That's because it's a cultural thing.
That's
Yeah.
actually no. I go see other things. I like I wanted to go see the new Jumanji, but I haven't had a chance.
I haven't either.
But I don't know.
I know Dane could care less to see that.
The
Sorry.
first one was funny.
Why do
mean
you
the
think
second
I would-
one, technically?
But look who you're talking to.
Or are you talking about the original?
No,
one with,
well, the original
Robin
was really good
Williams?
too. Like
Yeah,
I really like the original.
The original one is the best one, still in my
of
opinion.
course, it's Robin
Yeah,
Williams.
of course.
But whatever, you get my point.
Yeah.
Proceeding on.
But anyway, so we just kind of wanted to speculate who could kind of take over the mantle. I would really hope that Marvel sits down with him and maybe works things out, but that probably won't be the case. So we'll probably hear pretty soon who's going to be the new director because they still plan on keeping it the same release schedule.
Right.
So we will hear back and we'll probably give our opinion on how we think they did on picking who's the new director. Hopefully they pick someone that really feels like they really fit into the Doctor Strange type of directing role that we need. Anyway, so I just wanted to go over that and speculate and have fun talking about Doctor Strange just because it's an enjoyable series and just have an excuse to geek out. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Please comment, please subscribe, please hit that little notification bell. Please like. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Thank you most of all for letting us get to the root of our geek culture with you.